What if I told you one of the most iconic characters in Mortal Kombat only exists because Jean-Claude Van Damme refused not once, but twice? Number 20. After the infamous disaster of Super Mario Bros. In 1993, studios believed adapting games into films was a huge gamble. Their actual reasoning? Audiences wouldn't care about a fighting game with barely any story.
Give it up, baby. I've studied all your moves.
Yeah, study this!
So eventually the project landed at New Line Cinema, and even they were cautious. They approved the film but gave it a modest $20 million budget, tiny for a martial arts fantasy movie that needed detailed fight scenes, creature effects, and an entire mystical tournament world.
So you're going to win the tournament?
Yes, I am.
But when the film finally released in 1995, something extraordinary happened. The movie opened at number 1 and eventually grossed over $122 million worldwide, turning it into one of the biggest blockbusters of the year. In other words, Mortal Kombat proved something huge. Video games could absolutely work on the big screen. And honestly, if not for it, the entire wave of game adaptations we see today might never have started. If you think the 1995 film still beats the 2021 reboot, drop a 1995 in the comments. Number 19. One of the funniest secrets in the entire Mortal Kombat universe actually started years before the movie even existed. When developers at Midway were creating the original arcade game in the early 1990s, they had a wild idea to include Jean-Claude Van Damme as a playable character.
Those were $500 sunglasses, asshole.
Thanks to movies like Bloodsport and Kickboxer, the Belgian action star was at the peak of his fame during that time, and given his martial arts style, he would have fit perfectly into the game's tournament concept. But Van Damme turned the offer down. Yes! Anyhow, instead of scrapping the idea, the developers did something far more interesting. They created Johnny Cage, a Hollywood martial arts movie star who was basically a playful parody of Van Damme.
Do I look like your travel agent?
Fine.
The character kept the sunglasses, the cocky attitude, and even the famous split kick move Van Damme used in his films. Then came the irony. When the Mortal Kombat movie was casting roles in the mid-1990s, the filmmakers reportedly considered Van Damme again to play Johnny Cage, and once again, he said no. Sometimes the best jokes write themselves. Number 18. Casting a villain can make or break a movie, especially when that villain is supposed to command an entire supernatural tournament. When actor Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa walked into the audition for Tsung, he didn't just read lines from the script like everyone else. He turned the audition into a full-fledged performance. According to people in the room, Tagawa suddenly climbed onto a chair during his audition and delivered Tsung's dialogue from above the casting table. It was an unexpected move, but it perfectly captured the character's energy. Tsung was more than a villain. He was a manipulator and a soul-stealing sorcerer who dominated every room he entered. Given these circumstances, the producers cast him almost immediately. To be honest, it's hard to imagine the movie without him. Tagawa's performance became one of the most memorable parts of the entire film. His line delivery, his sinister smile, and that iconic phrase, "Your soul is mine,"
Your soul is mine,
turned Tsung into one of the most beloved villains in video game movie history. Sometimes the best audition isn't the most professional one. It's the one that shows you already understand the character. Number 17. Believe it or not, Cameron Diaz was originally cast as Sonya Blade. She had the role locked in and even began martial arts training during pre-production. But during training, she broke her wrist, forcing the production to replace her just weeks before filming started. That's when Bridget Wilson stepped in. With barely any time to prepare, she went all in. Wilson insisted on performing most of her own fight scenes rather than relying on stunt doubles. During one sequence, she actually dislocated her shoulder, but instead of stopping production, she finished the scene before seeking treatment.
Black Hawk calling Cardinal. Is anybody monitoring? Jax, this is Sonya. Do you copy?
Looking back, it's wild to imagine the alternate version of this movie. In 1995, Diaz was still early in her career, only a year removed from The Mask. If she had stayed, you're probably looking at a completely different movie. Diaz in 1995 was charm and lightness. Wilson brought something grittier. And the casting surprises don't stop there. Keep watching, because there's a story coming up about one character who almost didn't exist at all, and it involves a test audience basically rewriting the movie. Number 16. Those massive stone ruins you see in the film? Hollywood didn't build them. They literally got on boats and went and found them. Director Paul Anderson chose to shoot many scenes in Thailand, using real historical locations instead of building fake fantasy sets. And some of those locations were incredibly remote. We're talking cast and crew loading equipment into canoes and paddling through jungle waterways to get to set for a martial arts fantasy film in 1995.
You know, You gotta admire her. When she sets her mind on something,
It's not her mind you're admiring.
These were not those regular tourist areas. They were rather dense jungle temple ruins far away from modern roads. Several outworld scenes were filmed around the ancient temple complex of Wat Phra Si Sanfet, a historic royal temple dating back to the 15th century. So those massive stone structures and mysterious ruins you see on screen, Hollywood didn't build them. The production team literally found the atmosphere they needed in real locations, which is a huge reason the movie still looks surprisingly epic decades later. Number 15. Today, Goro would probably be fully CGI, but in 1995, the filmmakers built him as a massive animatronic puppet, and it was insanely complicated. The creature reportedly cost about $1 million to construct, and operating it required 13 to 16 puppeteers at once. Some controlled the arms, others handled the facial expressions, and another team managed the creature's body movement. But the problem was, it kept breaking. Hydraulics would fail mid-scene.
The Emperor's adopted daughter? Why should I?
Arm mechanisms would lock up. Entire filming days were lost waiting for technicians to repair the giant puppet. That's why, in many scenes, Goro mostly stands there looking intimidating rather than constantly fighting. The production simply learned to shoot around the puppet's limitations. Ironically, that limitation actually helped the character. The way Goro slowly stares down his opponents before attacking makes him feel even more intimidating, like a boss battle patiently waiting for the fight to begin. Number 14. If you've seen Mortal Kombat, you definitely remember the music. That iconic Mortal Kombat track, which was officially called Techno Syndrome by the Immortals. It became one of the most recognizable movie themes of the 1990s. But the soundtrack didn't only hype up the audience. It became the first electronic dance music soundtrack tied to a film to go platinum, selling over 1 million copies in the United States. Before this, techno and industrial music were still considered underground genres. After Mortal Kombat, studios realized that electronic music could bring massive energy to action movies. That influence carried through the rest of the decade, shaping the sound of iconic films like Blade and The Matrix. And if you just heard that theme in your head while reading this, congratulations, you've officially been combat conditioned. Number 13. Here's something that'll mess with your head. One of the most memorable fights in the entire movie almost wasn't in it at all. Early test screenings of Mortal Kombat revealed that audiences loved the movie's style, but they wanted more fights. So the filmmakers quickly added a brand new sequence. The legendary Liu Kang versus Reptile battle. The scene, where Reptile transforms from a hidden creature into a full ninja warrior, was created late in production and shot quickly with limited resources. That rushed schedule actually gave the scene its unique energy. The fast choreography, dramatic music, and bizarre transformation effects made it feel chaotic in the best way possible. And just like this, the fight added at the last minute became one of the most beloved moments in the entire film. Sometimes the best scenes happen because audiences ask for them. Number 12. You know how every action movie claims the actor did their own stunts? Shou actually did, and then kept going after fracturing 2 ribs. While filming the intense reptile fight sequence, Shou actually fractured 2 ribs, and still he didn't stop filming. Instead of shutting down production, he finished the entire sequence before telling the crew what had happened.
Or you will fail.
Oh yes, I forgot. We're fighting for the fate of the world!
That meant he was performing complex martial arts moves, jumping, striking, and taking hits, all while dealing with a serious injury. That level of dedication helped make his version of Liu Kang feel incredibly authentic. The impacts look real because the fight choreography was brutally physical. In many ways, that commitment is why Kang is the heart of the movie. He doesn't feel like a typical action hero. Instead, he feels like someone who actually fought through the pain to win the tournament. Stick around, because coming up we get into the fatalities that almost made it into the film, and the rating battle that nearly made this a completely different movie. Number 11. In the original Mortal Kombat, Tsung looks ancient. Gray hair, wrinkled skin, basically a walking corpse of a sorcerer who's been stealing souls for centuries. But the movie made a surprising change. So instead of an ancient shuffling sorcerer, you get Tagawa, younger, sharper, and somehow more terrifying for it. Part of the reason was practical. Heavy aging makeup can take hours to apply and limit what an actor can physically do on screen.
Welcome. You're here to compete in Mortal Kombat. Tomorrow morning, the great combat begins.
Additionally, it was also a creative decision. A younger Tsung is far more unsettling. He doesn't look like the ancient soul-stealing sorcerer he actually is. Instead, he moves through the tournament confident, charismatic, and completely in control. That contrast makes the character more dangerous because the real horror of Tsung isn't how old he looks, it's how many lifetimes he's already stolen. Number 10. One of the biggest surprises about Mortal Kombat is that it's actually PG-13. Considering the games were famous for brutal finishing moves, that might seem strange. But early drafts of the script originally included full fatalities, the iconic finishing moves that made the arcade games so controversial in the first place. Those moves were so graphic that they helped spark US government hearings on video game violence in the early 1990s, eventually leading to the creation of the Entertainment Software Rating Board. The studio ultimately pushed for a PG-13 rating to reach a wider audience.
If you are rated, why did you let Chan die? Why didn't you protect him?
Why didn't you?
Especially younger fans of the games. So the filmmakers removed most of the gore and focused instead on martial arts spectacle. Looking back, that decision might have saved the film. While an R-rated version might have been more brutal, the PG-13 cut allowed millions of younger fans to see it in theaters, helping turn it into a box office hit. Number 9. So where did the whole vibe of this movie actually come from? One film, Big Trouble in Little China. That film starring Kurt Russell with mixed martial arts, supernatural fantasy, humor, and over-the-top villains in a way that felt unique. And if you look closely, the influence is obvious. Johnny Cage's character arc, the cocky outsider who slowly realizes the mystical world around him is real. It mirrors the structure of Russell's character in Big Trouble in Little China perfectly.
Goodbye, Mr. Burton.
Ironically, that movie was considered a box office disappointment when it was first released, but later became a massive cult favorite. Anderson was essentially betting the same thing would happen again. Critics might not love it, but audiences who understood the vibe absolutely would, and history proved him right. Number 8. You know the line. Get over here. It's one of the most recognizable quotes in video game history, shouted by the Ninja Warrior Scorpion. But what most fans don't realize is that the voice delivering that line in the movie actually belongs to Ed Boon. In addition to co-creating Mortal Kombat, Boon also recorded the iconic line for Scorpion. His slightly distorted voice shouting, "Get over here," became the sound players heard every time Scorpion's spear connected and dragged an opponent across the screen. So when the film adaptation was made, the production brought him back to record the line again. It's a small detail, but it creates a perfect bridge between the games and the movie. The voice that players heard echoing through arcades in the early 90s is the one shouting that line on the big screen. And speaking of legacy, the next few facts get into how close this film came to destroying everything it built, and then how it ended up saving an entire genre anyway. Number 7. The filmmakers hid a small tribute to the arcade games that many viewers completely missed. During the movie, several sound effects and visual cues were taken directly from the Mortal Kombat arcade cabinets. One of the most noticeable is the test your might style moment, when characters smash objects during training sequences. In the original games, players would break blocks of ice, wood, or stone by rapidly pressing buttons in the bonus rounds. The film's training scenes subtly reference that same mechanic.
Round 2.
Oh, there's a round 2.
Turning what looks like simple martial arts practice into a wink to fans who grew up playing the arcade machines. It's a small detail, but it shows how carefully the filmmakers were trying to capture the spirit of the games. And for players who spent hours in arcades during the 90s, moments like that made the movie feel instantly familiar. Number 6. When Mortal Kombat hit theaters, expectations were low. The budget was only about $20 million, and many studios had already passed on the project. But the audience response was immediate. The movie opened number 1 at the box office.
Hey, pal. When the ship comes in, could you put these on board?
You want me to carry your luggage?
And eventually earned over $122 million worldwide, making it the highest-grossing video game adaptation ever at the time. For Hollywood executives, that was a wake-up call. Studios that had originally rejected the project suddenly realized something important. Video games weren't just niche entertainment anymore. They were massive global brands. The success of Mortal Kombat didn't just prove that game adaptations could work, it showed they could be seriously profitable. And that one weekend completely changed how Hollywood looked at video game franchises going forward. Number 5. After the success of the first film, a sequel seemed inevitable, and in 1997 came Mortal Kombat: Annihilation. But things were very different this time. Most of the original cast didn't return. The production rushed forward with a bigger scope, but far less stability behind the scenes. The result was a disaster. It became one of the most critically mocked sequels of the decade. Fans complained about the weak special effects, rushed storytelling, and the massive number of new characters thrown into the plot with almost no development. Instead of building on the success of the first movie, Annihilation damaged the franchise's reputation so badly that the series disappeared from theaters for years, which is why the 1995 original still feels special to fans today. It represents the moment when the franchise worked perfectly until a sequel ruined it all. Number 4. Critics were not impressed with Mortal Kombat when it was first released. Many reviewers described it as loud, shallow, and chaotic. Even legendary critic Roger Ebert gave the movie only 1.5 stars. But audiences had a completely different reaction. The film stayed number 1 at the box office for 3 straight weeks, and fans packed theaters to see their favorite fighters come to life.
Wasn't enough you filled my head with that nonsense.
To save the world is not nonsense.
Men fighting in a simple contest.
That gap between critics and audiences became one of the clearest examples of the difference between critical reception and fan enjoyment in the 1990s. Because for the fans who grew up playing the arcade game, the movie didn't need to be the next Citizen Kane. It just needed to deliver the tournament, the characters, and the fights they loved. And it absolutely did. Number 3. Before Mortal Kombat, Hollywood believed video game movies were basically doomed. But Mortal Kombat quietly changed that narrative. Instead of ignoring the source material, the film leaned into it, respecting the mythology, embracing the characters, and building the story around the tournament structure fans already understood. That formula became the blueprint for future adaptations. Decades later, you can still see the influence of that approach in modern hits like Sonic the Hedgehog, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and The Last of Us. The lesson was simple: respect the game's world, respect the characters, and the audience will show up. Mortal Kombat proved that the formula could work. Number 2. Before Mortal Kombat crashed into theaters, video game movies had a terrible reputation. Hollywood looked at game adaptations like a risky joke, and after Super Mario Bros. Stumbled so badly most people assumed the genre was basically cursed. Then Mortal Kombat showed up, Roundhouse kicked that idea into the void, and completely changed the conversation. It proved that a game movie did not need to be embarrassed by its own source material. Instead of stripping away the lore, it embraced the mythology, the fighters, the tournament stakes. And the larger-than-life energy that made the games fun in the first place. It understood the assignment: give fans iconic characters, build tension, and deliver a showdown that actually feels earned. That formula still echoes through modern adaptations today. You can see its fingerprints on nearly every game, movie, or series that takes itself seriously now. Mortal Kombat was not just a box office win. It was the moment Hollywood realized video games could work on screen. Number 1. Nearly 30 years later, people still watch Mortal Kombat. And not as a joke, not as a so bad it's good movie. They watch it because it actually works. At its core, Mortal Kombat isn't really about violence or special effects. It's about fighters with something personal at stake. Liu Kang isn't fighting just to save the world. He's fighting to avenge his brother. Johnny Cage is fighting to prove he's more than a fake Hollywood action star. Sonya Blade is fighting to honor the partner she lost. Those personal motivations make the tournament feel real. Because before the fate of Earth is on the line, each fighter already has something they can't afford to lose. And that's why, the moment you hear those 4 notes from Techno Syndrome, you're instantly back in that theater. If you caught new layers here, hit play on my Resident Evil secrets next.